Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever pictured nature as this vast collection of solitary actors, each species just doing its own thing, sort of in isolation?
Right, like everyone walled off.
Exactly. Well, if you have, prepare to have that idea delightfully upended.
Yeah.
Because the living world is fundamentally about connection.
Mm-hmm. It's this stunning, intricate web full of relationships, surprising partnerships, really complex dependencies.
And sometimes, yeah, outright biological trickery and theft. It's not just about isolated species.
No, it's about how they live together. It's a constant dynamic interplay.
Yeah.
The success, even the existence of one organism is just profoundly shaped by its interactions with others.
Life thriving, surviving, or sometimes faltering together.
Precisely.
And you, our listener, you've given us an incredible foundation for today's deep dive. We've got this stack of sources, articles, research, your own notes, all exploring this exact topic, the huge diversity of ecological relationships.
So our mission today, basically, is to be your guides through all this material. We're going to pull out the most important bits, the key knowledge.
Yeah, synthesize the insights from all these different kinds of interactions, the ones where everyone benefits, the ones that are pure conflict.
And find those aha moments, the surprising facts hidden away in the info you've shared.
And just as species connect in these unexpected ways to build thriving ecosystems, we really believe in connecting with you to explore new ideas.
Mm-hmm.
If peeling back the layers on topics like this sparks your curiosity, then the All Sorts podcast is definitely your kind of place. It's more than just listening, right? It's like joining a community.
Yeah, dedicated to understanding the world, one deep dive at a time.
So we'd love it if you'd like this deep dive. Maybe share it with someone else who's curious about the natural world, and especially subscribe to the All Sorts podcast on YouTube.
Subscribing really is like forming a mutualistic relationship with us.
Yeah.
You get direct access to this growing network of knowledge.
And it genuinely helps us bring you more explorations just like this one. And don't stop here. Dive into our back catalog. We've got a whole range of deep dives, each a unique journey.
And stay connected with the All Sorts podcast community. We're on X, Instagram, Threads. Think of it like following different trails in this huge landscape of information we're building together.
Okay, so to really get a handle on this whole spectrum of relationships, we need to start with the big concept, right? Symbiosis.
Yes, exactly. The term itself goes back to Heinrich Anton de Berry, 1879. And his original definition was beautifully simple: the living together of unlike organisms.
And that simple phrase, living together, it's actually incredibly powerful, isn't it? Because it doesn't automatically mean, being friendly.
Precisely. Symbiosis is much broader than just, mutual benefit. It's really an umbrella term. It covers any close, long-term interaction between different species.
So it includes the ones we know well, like a mutualism win-win.
Right. Commensalism, one benefits, the other is apparently unaffected. And parasitism, one benefits, the other gets harmed.
But the sources show it's even wider than that.
Oh, yeah. There's competition, commensalism, mutualism, synechrosis. Even mimicry and cleaning symbiosis fall under this big umbrella.
It really drives home that nature isn't just black and white, allies and enemies. It's way more nuanced.
Definitely. And even within symbiosis, these relationships can look different, physically and functionally.
How so?
Well, the sources talk about how dependent the organisms are. You've got obligate symbiosis.
Meaning they have to live together.
Yes, at least one partner, often both, can't survive without the other. Then there's facultative. The relationship is helpful, but optional. They can manage on their own if needed.
Okay. And physically, how they live together.
You can have conjunctive symbiosis, where they actually form a single body, though that's less common in the examples we have here.
Yeah.
More often it's disjunctive, living close, but separate.
Right.
Then there's ectosymbiosis. One lives on the surface of the other. Think lice on a human or barnacles on a whale. And endosymbiosis, where one lives inside the host's tissues or even cells. This is super important. Think algae inside coral cells, or bacteria in plant roots, or inside insects giving them nutrients.
Wow, okay. So living together really runs the gamut, from just hitching a ride to being literally inside someone else's cells. So with that framework, let's maybe look at some of the less cozy interactions. Competition, for instance.
Competition is probably the most intuitive one, right? It's just an interaction where one organism's presence hurts another's ability to survive, grow, reproduce its fitness.
Usually over resources.
Almost always. Shared, limited resources, food, water, territory, mates. It's so basic it can even happen between cells inside the same body, fighting for nutrients.
A universal struggle. Okay, moving along. What about commensalism? One benefits, the others neutral.
Yeah, commensalism. The word comes from Latin, something like sharing a table. One organism gets a benefit, the other isn't really helped or harmed in any significant way. It's like an uninvited but totally harmless house guest.
And the sources mention hermit crabs using old shells.
Exactly. That's a type called metabiosis, using something made by another organism after it's dead. The shell protects the crab, but the snail that made it, long gone. Doesn't care.
Makes sense. Any other examples?
Spiders building webs on plants is another one. Or 4D just using another organism for a ride, like mites on an insect. Or inquilinism, living inside another organism for housing, but not being parasitic, like some insects in plant galls.
Fascinating how many ways there are to just find a space without causing trouble. But then there's the one where trouble is the point. Parasitism.
Ah, yes. Parasitism. Unlike commensalism, the host is harmed here while the parasite benefits. And it's an incredibly successful strategy, evolutionarily speaking. The sources note something like 40% of all known animal species are parasitic.
40%? That's staggering.
It really is. It just shows how effective it is. And it comes in loads of forms. Endoparasites inside the host, ectoparasites on the surface.
Like ticks or fleas.
Right. Then you have parasitic castrators that basically sterilize their host. And micropredators, like mosquitoes, that just visit briefly to feed. The sources also mention brood parasitism.
Birds laying eggs in other birds' nests.
Exactly that. Getting someone else to do the parenting.
And can these relationships change? Like, can a mutualism go bad?
They definitely can shift. The sources point out that relationships aren't always set in stone. Sometimes species that were helpful, mutualists, can turn parasitic if the host gets weak. Certain fungi on plants, for example.
Wow.
And, maybe even more surprisingly, mutualism can actually evolve from parasitism over time.
Nature's just full of twists and turns. Okay, there's another one here that just sounds naughty. Kleptoparasitism?
Yes, theft parasitism. From the Greek for theft and living beside, it's literally one organism stealing food or resources that another one has already caught or prepared.
And frigate birds are the poster children for this.
Oh, absolutely. They get called man-o'-war birds, pirates of the sea. During breeding season, they'll just hang out above seabird colonies, waiting for a parent bird coming back with food. Then they launch this intense pursuit, harassing the poor bird, sometimes even grabbing its tail until it regurgitates or drops its catch.
And the frigate bird swoops in.
Snaps it right up.
Yeah.
Though interestingly, the sources mention that for the magnificent frigate bird, the actual amount of food they get this way can be pretty marginal compared to just fishing for themselves.
Huh. So maybe more about the opportunity than the main meal sometimes.
Could be. And gulls. They're famous kleptoparasites too. They can steal from each other, from smaller birds.
I've seen that at the beach.
Oh, yeah. The sources describe herons and laughing gulls just lurking near brown pelicans, waiting for them to empty their bills, then snatching the fish. Great black-backed gulls are even bolder, stealing from other gulls, even from birds of prey.
And from us, of course. Fish and chips thieves.
Exactly. Stealing takeaway food at seaside resorts. Highly adaptable thieves.
Okay, let's shift to another kind of deception. Mimicry. This isn't stealing food, but stealing. An identity.
Sort of, yeah. Mimicry is when one species evolves to look like another species, or maybe even an inanimate object, to fool a third party, usually a predator, or prey, and gain some advantage. The sources mention two main types.
Batesian mimicry, where something harmless copies something dangerous.
That's the one. It's a one-sided deal. The mimic copies a model species that's maybe toxic or stings. Think hoverflies that look a lot like wasps.
Right, I've seen those.
So the predator, the dupe, avoids the harmless mimic because it learned to avoid the dangerous model. The mimic gets protection. It's bad for the model, though, because it kind of dilutes the warning signal, and bad for the dupe if it misses out on food.
So the mimic is basically lying with its appearance.
Pretty much. Then there's Mullerian mimicry. This is different because multiple species, all of which are genuinely dangerous or taste bad, evolved to look like each other.
Like different kinds of bees or wasps having similar warning colors.
Exactly. Various venomous snakes might share patterns, too.
And how does that help all of them?
Because a predator only needs one bad experience to learn to avoid that entire pattern. If a bird tries to eat one black and yellow striped insect and gets stung, it'll likely avoid all similarly patterned insects afterwards, no matter the species.
Ah, so they share the cost of teaching the predators.
Precisely. The burden of education is spread out.
Yeah.
It's a very clever, collaborative defense system.
Okay, so we've gone from conflict and theft and deception. Now let's move to the truly cooperative end of the spectrum, mutualism.
Right, mutualism. This is the classic win-win, a long-term interaction where both partners benefit. And like we said, it can be obligate, essential, or facultative, just beneficial but not strictly required.
And the sources make a really key point here. Mutualism can actually boost the competitive edge for both partners.
Absolutely. Together, they can access resources, avoid enemies, or reproduce more effectively than they could alone. That's the real power of it.
And the examples are just amazing. Let's start with the goby and the pistol shrimp.
Oh, this is a fantastic one. You find them on the seafloor. The pistol shrimp digs and maintains this burrow they share. But the shrimp is nearly blind when it's outside.
So vulnerable.
Very. But the goby fish has great eyesight and acts as a lookout. It hangs out near the burrow entrance, and crucially, the shrimp keeps its antenna touching the goby's body.
It's like a little alarm system.
Exactly. If the goby sees a predator, or even detects chemical cues of danger, it darts back into the burrow instantly. The shrimp feels that movement or the loss of contact through its antenna, and boom, it retreats too, immediately.
Wow.
And the goby, just being out and about, signals to the shrimp that it's safe to come out and forage near the entrance. It's pure trust, based on touch.
Antenna-to-tail communication. Amazing. What about those pitcher plants? It seems weird for a carnivore to team up with anything.
It does seem counterintuitive. But the sources highlight these really unique mutualisms. Take Nepenthes hemsliana, a pitcher plant in Borneo. It eats insects, right? But woolly bats actually choose to roost inside its pitchers during the day.
Voluntarily climbing into a potential trap. Why?
Well, the plant gets vital nutrients, especially nitrogen, from the bat droppings, the guano that collect inside.
Okay, and the bat?
The bat gets a safe, climate-controlled place to sleep, protected from predators, and maybe even with fewer parasites than, say, a tree hollow. Shelter in exchange for fertilizer. A neat deal.
And there's a similar thing with tree shrews.
Yeah, another Bornean pitcher plant, Nepenthes lowi. This one attracts tree shrews with nectar on the pitcher's lid. While the shrew is licking the nectar, it often, it defecates right into the pitcher opening.
Seriously?
Seriously. The pitcher shape is apparently adapted perfectly for it, like a little toilet bowl, as the sources say.
Okay.
Again, the plant gets nitrogen from the shrew's droppings.
Nature's toilet humor, leading to mutual benefit. Okay, coral and algae, that's a really famous one.
Super famous and fundamental. Corals are animals, remember, colonial animals, not plants or rocks. And they're amazing colors. They come from microscopic algae called zooxanthellae living inside their tissues. True endosymbiosis.
So the coral structure provides a home.
A safe, sunny home. The coral skeleton protects the algae and gives them access to sunlight for photosynthesis. Plus, the coral provides compounds the algae need, like CO2.
And in return?
The algae are like little solar-powered sugar factories. They photosynthesize and produce oxygen, sugars, other organic goodies that the coral absorbs. This provides the vast majority of the coral's energy, especially in those nutrient-poor tropical waters. It's the engine of the reef.
Absolutely critical. And clownfish and anemones, another classic pairing.
Iconic. Anemones have those stinging tentacles to catch fish. But clownfish, like Nemo, have this amazing adaptation. They're immune to the sting, probably due to a special mucus coating.
So they can just hang out in there, safe from predators.
Exactly. Perfect protection. And the anemone gets quite a lot back, too. The clownfish chases away fish that might eat the anemone. It cleans the anemone, removes parasites.
Really? Like housekeeping?
Yeah. And its waste provides nutrients, maybe even boosting the algae inside the anemone. They might drop food scraps. They even help circulate water around the tentacles. The sources say anemones with clownfish grow faster, reproduce more, and survive better.
Wow, that's a lot of benefits. And this might have started as just commensalism.
That's the thinking, yeah.
Yeah.
Evolved from one just tolerating the other to this really tight mutual dependence. Shows that fluidity again.
Okay, there's even a human mutualism mention, something ancient.
The greater honey-guide bird. This is fascinating. These birds love beeswax, bee eggs, larvae stuff inside wild bee nests. But they can't easily break into the nests themselves or handle the angry bees.
So they need help.
They need help. And they've learned to actively lead other species, including humans, traditionally to the nests. They use specific calls, flight patterns, basically saying, "Follow me, honey this way."
Seriously, a feathered guide to treasure.
Pretty much. The humans, or other partners like honey badgers, do the hard work, smoke out the bees, break open the nest. They take the honey, and the honey guide gets the leftovers, the wax and larvae it wanted all along. A unique collaboration based on a shared goal.
That is wild. Okay, how about the Sonita cactus and its moth?
The desert romance. The Sonita cactus flowers only open at night, and the female Sonita moth is basically its only nighttime pollinator. She's responsible for, 75–95% of its pollination.
Wow, almost total dependence.
Totally. She has these special scales she uses to actively collect pollen, and then she applies it to the stigma of the next flower she visits.
So the cactus gets pollinated. What's in it for the moth?
She lays 1 egg per flower petal. When the larva hatches, it eats some of the developing seeds and fruit tissue, and this is key, it only eats about 21%, according to the sources.
Just a fraction.
Exactly. It leaves most of the seeds intact, allowing the cactus to reproduce successfully. It's this really finely tuned balance. Enough for the moth's offspring, but not so much it kills the cactus's chances. It's similar to yuccas and yucca moths, or figs and fig wasps, these really tight, co-evolved relationships.
That balance seems crucial. It's a thin line between helping and harming.
It really is. And there are other huge mutualisms. Think about herbivores and their gut microbes, bacteria. Protozoa breaking down tough plant cellulose. They couldn't digest grass without them.
Or the fungi in the soil. Mycorrhizae.
Yes. About 80% of land plants have these partnerships with mycorrhizal fungi. The fungi act like extensions of the plant roots, massively increasing their ability to absorb soil nutrients, phosphate, nitrogen,
And the fungi.
sugars, carbon compounds the plant makes through photosynthesis. It's absolutely fundamental for plant life on land.
And we touched on cleaning symbiosis earlier.
Right, the classic cleaner fish or shrimp removing parasites. But the sources had that amazing shark example.
Oh yeah, the sharks letting cleaner wrasse work on them.
It's incredible. Yeah. Certain sharks, bull sharks, reef sharks, they actually seek out cleaning stations. They slow right down, become passive.
And the wrasse just swims all over them, even in the mouth.
Even in the mouth and gills, yeah.
Yeah.
That's where most parasites hang out. And the really mind-blowing part the sources mention, the shark often stops breathing when the wrasse goes into that mouth and gill area.
Stops breathing. For how long?
Up to 2.5 minutes, actively suppressing a vital reflex just to let the little fish clean it properly. That level of trust is just...
Wow. That completely changes how you picture a shark encounter. Shows the value of that service.
Doesn't it just? There was another cool one, bryozoans and hermit crabs. These tiny colonial animals grow on the crab's shell.
Like barnacles.
A bit, but they actively grow a tubular extension onto the shell's opening as the crab gets bigger. They basically enlarge the crab's house for it.
Custom renovation. What do the bryozoans get?
A mobile home, maybe food scraps the crab stirs up. The crab gets more living space without having to find a new shell. Another neat partnership.
Yeah. And finally, let's circle back to nitrogen fixation. Hugely important.
Absolutely. The partnership between rhizobia bacteria and legumes, beans, clover, peas. These bacteria live in special nodules on the plant roots.
And they fix nitrogen.
They take nitrogen gas from the air, which plants can't use, and convert it into ammonia, a form the plant can use for growth.
But the bacteria need the plant to do it.
Critically, yes. The sources emphasize they cannot fix nitrogen on their own. They need the specific environment inside the root nodule provided by the plant. In return for the nitrogen fertilizer, the plant gives the bacteria sugars from photosynthesis. It's why legumes are so good at growing in poor soil and so important for agriculture.
Okay, so we've seen this incredible web of interactions across ecosystems, from theft to vital partnerships, but now the sources take us inward.
Exactly. It's a crucial pivot. The biologist Lynn Margulis really pushed the idea that symbiosis, especially endosymbiosis, is a major driver of evolution, maybe even more than just competition.
Her quote was powerful. Life did not take over the globe by combat, but by networking.
That sums it up beautifully. Networking within and between species. Which leads us to this idea of the hologenome.
The hologenome concept. What is that exactly?
It suggests we shouldn't just think about the host organism in isolation. We should consider the holobiont, that's the host, plus all its associated microbes, its symbionts. And their combined genomes, the hologenome, function together as a unit that evolution acts upon.
Because microbes are literally everywhere, on and in us.
Every multicellular organism studied, yeah. And they're not just passive writers, they actively influence our development.
Co-development.
Right. Signals from symbionts are essential for the proper development of many organisms, vertebrates included. They help shape who we become right from the start.
Which leads us directly to the mind-bending complexity inside us, the human microbiome.
Yeah, this vast community bacteria, archaea, viruses, fungi, other microbes living in our gut, on our skin, in our mouth, everywhere. The sources say they might outnumber our own human cells 10 to 1.
Still hard to wrap your head around that number. 10 microbial cells for every one of ours.
It really highlights that we're walking ecosystems. And for ages, we barely understood it because most of these microbes can't be grown in a lab dish.
But new technology changed that.
Dramatically. High-throughput sequencing, things like 16S RNA gene sequencing, shotgun metagenomics. Now we can basically read the genetic fingerprints to see who's there and what they might be doing, function-wise, without needing to culture them. Big projects like the Human Microbiome Project, META-AT, they've mapped this world like never before.
But studying something so incredibly complex must be challenging.
Hugely challenging. The sources point out several big hurdles. First, just the sheer diversity is often unexpected wherever you look. Second, massive variation between people. Your gut microbiome could look vastly different from mine.
Which makes it hard to say what's normal or healthy.
Exactly. It's a huge issue for comparing studies.
Mm-hmm.
There are technical stuff. Different sequencing methods have different strengths and weaknesses, read length, errors, biases. Comparing results across studies using different tech or analysis tools is tricky.
Like comparing maps drawn with different tools and scales.
Good analogy.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, the need for longitudinal studies. Looking over time, a lot of early work was just a snapshot. But the microbiome changes with age, diet, antibiotics, illness. To understand its role, you need to track it over time.
Like the source analogy, checking a drug's effect at only one time point misses the whole picture.
Precisely. You need the movie, not just the single frame.
Okay, let's zoom in on two specific ecosystems the sources detail. The vaginal microbiome and the gut microbiome, they sound quite different.
Very different. The vaginal ecosystem is seen as a key part of antimicrobial defense, though we're still figuring out exactly how, but compared to the gut, it's characterized by low complexity, fewer types of communities.
Low complexity, so dominated by just a few players.
Generally, yes. In reproductive age women, most common community types are dominated by different species of lactobacillus, things like L. crispatus, L. ginsengii.
And what do they do?
The main hypothesis is they maintain stability, homeostasis, largely by producing lactic acid. This lowers the pH, making it hostile for many pathogens. They might also produce other antimicrobial compounds or just crowd out the bad guys.
So a few key species holding the fort. And this affects infection risk.
Significantly, a healthy lactobacillus-dominated state is linked to lower risk of bacterial vaginosis, yeast infections, some STIs, UTIs, even HIV transmission. Shifts away from that often correlate with higher risk.
Okay, then the GI tract, the opposite end of the complexity scale.
Completely. The gut microbiota is known for high species diversity, complex dynamics. Its collective metabolic power is so vast, the sources call it a virtual organ within an organ.
Leading to that superorganism idea.
Exactly. We're not just us. We're us, plus this massive microbial community doing essential work. They live right at the gut lining, mediating defense, helping develop our immune system, influencing our nutritional state, digesting food, making vitamins.
And this develops over time.
Yeah, it starts seeding at birth how you're born matters. Vaginal versus C-section. It's simple at first, then gets more complex and diverse over the first year or so, influenced by diet, eventually reaching a more stable adult-like climax community, though it still changes subtly throughout life.
And what shapes this gut world? Nature and nurture.
Both. Host genetics plays a role, well, it seems to be a complex trait, but environmental factors are huge. Diet is a massive driver. And antibiotic use, the sources really highlight this, can cause major disruptions, these regime shifts, that the community might not fully recover from.
A lasting impact from medication. Wow. What about these enterotypes mentioned?
Yeah, that was a big finding. Even though everyone's gut microbes are different in detail, studies found people's gut communities tend to cluster into maybe 3 broad types, or enterotypes, based on which bacterial groups dominate. That gives a way to categorize despite the variation. What drives these types is still being worked out, though.
So broad patterns exist, and functionally. Are gut microbes doing similar jobs even if the species differ?
That seems to be the case, yeah. The sources suggest that while the list of species, the taxonomy, varies a lot between people, the overall functional capability, what metabolic jobs the community can do, might be more stable. Different microbes filling similar roles.
Function over form, in a way. Any specific gut microbes highlighted?
A couple are mentioned. Akkermansia mucinephila, it degrades mucus, lives in the gut lining, and is often linked to gut health, maybe a biomarker. And Bacteroides fragilis, specifically a molecule it makes called polysaccharide A, showed protective effects in mouse models of autoimmune disease, hinting at immune roles.
And the connection to disease, this seems to be a huge area of research.
Massive. The sources list associations between microbiome changes and loads of conditions. Bacterial vaginosis, we mentioned. Inflammatory bowel disease often sees increases in Enterobacteriaceae. Type 1 and 2 diabetes linked to lower diversity or specific group productions. Rheumatoid arthritis, colorectal cancer. many links being explored.
Seeing correlations between microbial shifts and these diseases.
Yes. But, and this is the critical caveat, the sources hammer home association doesn't equal causation. This is the biggest challenge in the field.
Right. Does the changed microbiome cause the disease, or does the disease change the microbiome? Chicken and egg.
Exactly. Untangling that is incredibly difficult. It needs really sophisticated studies tracking people over time, careful experiments in animals, clinical trials.
But the potential payoff is huge.
Immense. The dream is using microbiome profiles for diagnosis or even developing microbiome therapeutics, probiotics, prebiotics, maybe even fecal transplants to actively shift the community in a beneficial way to treat or prevent disease. But getting there needs everyone working together, immunologists, ecologists, clinicians, biologists, a truly integrative effort.
So wrapping this all up, we've journeyed through this incredible spectrum of interactions from, kleptoparasites stealing dinner and mimics playing dress up.
Right, all the way to these absolutely essential partnerships, mutualisms that underpin entire ecosystems, gobies and shrimp, coral and algae, plants and fungi.
And then we turned inward to the ecosystem within us, the human microbiome, this complex, dynamic world that challenges how we even define an individual.
It really underscores that life at every level isn't about isolation. It's about this constant networking, cooperative, competitive, sometimes really surprising connections.
A dynamic web, not just a collection of separate entities.
Definitely reshapes how you see life and our own place in it.
So here's a thought to leave you with. If we accept the human body as a superorganism, this intricate ecosystem heavily reliant on our microbiome, what does that really mean for how we think about health, about individuality, even identity? Does recognizing all these diverse relationships inside and out change how you view yourself and your connection to the rest of nature? Something to ponder.
And that brings us to the end of this deep dive into the fascinating world of ecological relationships.
If this journey through life's intricate connections sparked something in you, just imagine what else is out there waiting to be explored. Keep that curiosity alive with the All Sorts podcast. Find us on YouTube. Please hit that subscribe button, join our community, become part of this growing network of knowledge.
Yeah, liking this deep dive, sharing it with others, checking out our past explorations, it all helps this ecosystem thrive, much like those mutualisms we talked about.
And connect with us and other curious minds on X, Instagram, and Threads too. Your engagement really does make a difference and helps us keep building this resource.
Until next time, keep asking questions.
And keep diving deep.